Hello, and thank you for taking the time on your very busy schedules to join me today. I hope that there is something within this video that is a benefit to you or to somebody that you know. Please like, subscribe, share this video, leave a comment down below. You can also find us on uh, alternative platforms. Please feel free to take a look at us, follow us there. This would include Rumble, Odyssey, and Locals. Where Locals, you can go ahead and support us. I get a few members on there. I'll be more likely to just post other things as well over there. We can also be found on Minds and Getter under DNL Mentors. Now that tax season is over and I've recovered from, I'm sure, what was one of the new 725 variants of the new flu, I'm doing much better. And I wanted to take a look today on a couple of different things. I've also had some sound errors, and I'm hoping I have those fixed and maintained because I wanted to share with you a few interesting things. I wanted to start with a small complaint. Hey, Elon, I finally used my Twitter. I signed on my Twitter last night only to find out I have been permanently suspended from Twitter for hate speech. The only thing I have ever posted was Deuteronomy 23:1 and the text from the New King James Version Bible that follows that. I have been told that's hate speech. So, we now live in an era where free speech is limited to what the legislation dictates. I'm not exactly sure at this time. Again, it is we're starting to find ourselves in a weird spot here in America that is reminiscent of socialist Germany. I say that because it wasn't an overnight progression, it was a slow progression. Such things as like Tucker Carlson getting deplatformed, getting removed from Fox, and then you have AOC coming on saying how it's a good thing that he's been deplatformed. A government employee who, in theory, is supposed to support freedom of speech in all forms says it's good to censor and deplatform people. That tells you the state of our socialist government at the moment. And that's AOC, by the way, head of the Socialist Party, it would seem. But she doesn't call herself socialist, she calls herself a Democrat. So again, I make the argument that the Democratic Party we have in America right now is really a socialist party and not a Democratic Party. But yeah, it seems I've been permanently suspended from Twitter. Oh well, I was looking at the idea of posting on Twitter, seeing if I can get any views for my videos from there. Now, one of the things I wanted to look at, one of the things I did want to share today, I'm sure it's been in the news, everybody's talked about it, but it does kind of lead again to where we are going. And it is definitely not in the area of God-fearing. And the reason I say that, now this came out, and you can go look it up, on March 8th by the United Nations. This was for National Women's Day, a human rights-based approach to criminal law prescribing conduct associated with sex, reproduction, drug use, HIV, homelessness, and poverty. Now we're saying, oh, that's just the UN. But again, the United States is one of the biggest contributors to the UN. You can go ahead and download this PDF off the internet. I find that since YouTube doesn't like links, I may not include the links for this. The part I really wanted to go down to was number 16 because it bothers me greatly. This in light that the UN has 60,000 accusations of quote-unquote rape against them at the moment. I won't get into this one because this is an episode entirely of, by, and for itself. Principle 16, consensual sexual conduct. We need to draw the line someplace. Consensual sexual conduct, irrespective of the type of sexual activity, sex, gender, sexual orientation, gender expression, marital status, will not be criminalized in any circumstance. Well, I got news for you. Some of this stuff is actually criminalized. Sexual activity has been criminalized, even in California. Those laws still are in the books. You can look them up. The crazy laws still in the books, like you can't have an elephant in an apartment in New York City. You have to wonder what people did in the first place to have those laws put on the books sometimes, though. Anyways, consensual same sex, as well as consensual different sex sexual relations, or consensual sexual relations with or between trans, non-binary, other gendered, diverse of people, or outside of marriage. So you cannot criminalize extramarital. Oh, wait, it says it. Whether premarital or extramarital may therefore never be criminalized. This is where we had been and where we're going. It bothers me that, again, extramarital sex, cheating, and no-fault divorce is not a criminalized idea. I'll get into that because no-fault divorce is just another form of legal plunder. With respect to the enforcement of criminal laws, any prescribed minor age of consent to sex must be applied in a non-discriminatory manner. Enforcement may not be linked to the sex, gender of the participant, or age of consent to marry. Now, some states, age of consent to marry is 16, some 18. That's just here in the U.S. I'm keeping it just in the U.S. at the moment. But this says that there should be no age. With respect to the enforcement of criminal law, announcing children, any prescribed minimum age of consent to sex must be applied in a non-discriminatory manner. So you'd think broadly, if someone's under 16, they cannot give consent. Enforcement may not be linked to the sexual gender of participant or age of consent to marry. Okay, this is starting to become a problem because, again, a valid society, Western civilized society, was built on the concept that sex outside of marriage is bad. Moreover, sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual, in fact, if not in law, which means basically, even though the law says you have to be X amount to be considered a minor, this says there is no minimum age to be considered able to give consent. There's a huge conflict in this. In this context, an enforcement of criminal law should reflect the rights and capabilities of persons under 18 of age to make decisions about engaging in consensual sex conduct and their right to be heard in matters concerning them. Pursuant to their evolving capabilities and progressive autonomy, persons under the age of 18 should participate in decisions affecting them with due regards to their age, maturity, and best interests, with a specific attention to non-discrimination guarantees. So this means basically it doesn't matter what the age of the youth is, as long as they give consent, it's okay regardless of the age of the other person. And that's what this law says. And again, it's a UN law, where the whole global world is supposed to accept the similar laws and guidelines. This is the UN coming out saying that an adult being with a child is okay, as long as the child gives consent. But they can't give consent until they're 18 or 21 even for certain things. How come I'm confused in all of this going, but you're just saying it's okay as long as the kid says it's okay to do things? This is the problem again when we start pushing the idea of it's okay to have sex outside of the confines of marriage, like it used to be taught, that was bad, that was shameful. But in today's pride, that is how you identify yourself. And again, this is part of the corruption within our system, our current beliefs, and the culture at the moment, is that kind of thing is okay. I still say one of the things that have eroded Western civilization and culture is the no-fault divorce. But this is one of those things I wanted to share. And now the other thing I wanted to share right after that is this statement, because the only setup I'm going to give for this statement is it's so severe. My youngest child, who is young enough to be in school still, sent me this. This is a concern when my youngest child points this out to me even.
The cages, Joe.
Let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me
put a teacher's creed into words when she said, there's no such thing as someone else's child. No such thing as someone else's child. Our nation's children are all our children.
The government should keep its sticky little legal plunder hands out of education. Unfortunately, for some reason, the legislature tend to think they know better than the common people, and that the common people don't know what they actually want. Therefore, sometimes we end up with these really crazy, insane things being done. I wanted to just take a moment because there was a new executive order that just came out. Again, my argument, Joe Biden, day one in office, has signed an executive order to counteract every executive order of the previous president. Where is this country at if that can be done and is acceptable? And the Keystone Pipeline. What kind of job is he looking at doing? Honestly, taking this country into a socialist country? I want to share one more thing with you. Now, what I want to share with you literally was signed on the 21st of this month and was literally published today. And I just want to share a brief bit of it before I bring my episode here to an end. As I said, this is, you can see from the published date, this is off the federalregister.gov website. Revitalizing our nation's commitment to environmental justice for all. All who? All the world, all the U.S., without its borders. So all who? Who is encompassed in this environmental justice for all statement? This is, again, this is one of those things that is concerning me currently about the state of affairs with the United States government. And again, how we are more socialist than we have ever been. We're as socialist as some of the European countries. But I'm going to start by just going over Section 1 and the one point for me that got me going, wait a second here. Section 1, policy. To fulfill our nation's promise to justice, liberty, and equity. Where? Where is that? Liberty, justice, and equity. Every person must have clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, safe and healthy food to eat the bugs. Cows fart too much and must be exterminated and therefore are not considered a healthy food. Eggs are bad for you and cause heart attacks. Red meat is bad for you because it clogs your arteries. I've suffered a massive coronary. By God's grace, I am still alive. Give me my red meat. I'll continue. And an environment that is healthy, sustainable, climate resilient. How in their hubris can they think the federal government can make laws that will clean the air when they are the biggest hot air bags in the world and free from harmful pollutants and chemical exposure? All right, we're not going to go over the train that was set fire and how that's been hushed up. All that chemical, deadly chemicals that were basically banned after their use in World War I, but because they're used for other components, that's why they're still being used and produced today. But individually, they're outlawed as a chemical biological weapon. They burned a train full of it, releasing it into the atmosphere. How's the government to stop that when the government didn't have the right laws in place to stop the tracks from being worn down? That car had been on fire for almost 100 miles before they finally stopped it. You can see it in video. I wish I had the video to show you. I wish I had the receipts. I didn't think at the time it was going to be a major thing. But I'll get on with this thing that our glorious leader has put into effect. Restoring and protecting a healthy environment. Again, where in the Constitution does that say that's the government's responsibility? Just curious. No, it's the legislative body thinking in their hubris that they know what we, the voters, would want. So they do it anyways. Like the Inflation Reduction Act. Most people didn't want it. Did it anyways. 72% of Americans do not want Joe Biden to run for office. Yet he's doing it anyways. They don't care about you. It's like in China. You know, in China, they're a democracy because everybody gets to vote. Straight face, not lying, truth. Everybody gets to vote. It's a democracy. Then why here is it that in the West we call it a communist regime? How is it different than the socialist regime we are currently looking at if we let Joe Biden finish the job? If we let the current Republicans in office finish the job? Vote. Anyway, so if these people, this president in his hubris thinks it's his responsibility to restore and protect the environment. Wherever people live, play, work, learn, grow, and worship. Again, but the kind of worship is limited by how you interpret free speech. As I mentioned, Twitter, I've been dropped from Twitter simply for saying Deuteronomy 23:1. All the tweet said, Deuteronomy 23:1, and then the quote afterwards. And I've been permanently banned from Twitter. Please stop buying the lie of freedom of religion. Otherwise, some of you are doing it wrong. It is a matter of justice and fundamental duty that the federal government must uphold on behalf of all people. All people, not American people, all people. The federal government must uphold on behalf of all people. Again, this is part of the legislative body's hubris in thinking, again, this is part of our current problem with the current regime. It's why the American dollar is in question. It's why the banks are threatening to collapse. We're looking at an economic collapse within the next 5 years that will make it not the 1920s look like a party. This next thing is really what sent me over the edge. When you look at what this president is pushing, the socialism, the world socialism he's trying to push, and it's getting kickback in many places. The new brick that's coming up for oil exchange, the fact that France is saying that if Taiwan's attacked, they may not actually be there to watch our back. And they're already dealing with Ukraine. These are problems Biden needs to address, not ignore, not stay hidden away, not let Pete Buttigieg handle. He needs to stand up and show his leadership. Show this faith that we're supposed to have put into him, that we are more than just servants. We must advance environmental justice, legal plunder for all by implementing and enforcing the nation's environmental and civil rights laws. That's when I flipped out. Civil rights, we have civil rights to clean air. That should be a human right. Have a human right to drink clean water, free of additives like estrogen and stuff like that, cocaine. I have a human right, not a civil right. We must advance environmental justice for all by implementing and enforcing the nation's environmental and civil rights laws. The law has been perverted. Sadly, we are a former shell of ourselves. We are like the Roman Republic about to fall to Caesar. Oh, let us pray to God that Caesar is kind and that God is merciful upon our souls. Preventing pollution. How are civil rights law preventing pollution? Addressing climate change and its effects and working to clean up legacy pollution that is harmful or that is harming human health and the environment. Again, how is this the federal government's job to write laws to protect union jobs? I haven't read this whole thing. It's 11 pages long. I'm going to go ahead and leave it here because this episode's already starting to get kind of long. It just came out today. I need some time to read over it. But as it was, I just read the first couple of paragraphs going, this is insane. It's not insane in concept. It's like, again, communism. Great on paper, but I don't want to live there. Socialism. Great on paper, but I don't want to live there. Plato's Republic. Great on paper. I don't want to live there. I want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy schedules. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, share this video, although I encourage you to do that. You can also find us not only on YouTube at the moment, but on, I would say Twitter, but I've been permanently nuked. Thank you, Elon. Freedom of speech is a beautiful thing. You should try it sometime. And that includes freedom of religion. Anyways, and I defend the guy any day of the week. One of those things that's like, you got to be kidding me. Because again, not Elon personally. Somebody there at Twitter took a disliking to freedom of speech and freedom of religion because my lived reality, my lived truth is that of a God-fearing man. So with that, I want to say thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, and share, as I said earlier. You can find us on Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube, Locals, as well as Getter and Gab. Oh, and please feel free to check out, now that the tax season is over, dlmentors.com, because you probably have noticed, I'll have to move this to the front maybe, you probably have noticed that the tax tables have been changed by the U.S. government, in which they are taking less out, but I did warn at one time, by then taking less out, you will be getting less back, or worse, having to actually pay. I hope this tax season treated you beautifully, and with that, thank you very much. United we stand, divided we fall. God bless you, and God bless America, and have mercy on us all.